share my screen and just roll through for the new crew and for the people that have been pumping around for a while, just to re-engage with the simplicity of it. Because a real thing, like, it was really refreshing. Like, we had Andrew Logan speaking. So he's like 8-star, so multiple 6-figure earner, residual income, maxed out his business center. And it was just really cool to hear from him. He's still just doing these same 6 things that we got told to do. And he was just really emphatic about reminding us. It's like the people that are earning hundreds of thousands of dollars, they've got nothing extra. They're not doing anything extra. They're just refining how well they do these 6 things. So what I want to talk about tonight is just the first couple, and specifically number 2, talking to people. Because just show of hands, especially when you just get started, who finds that the biggest roadblock? Like, I'm missing comments, but sounds like Callum was just really funny. Who finds, show of hands, and even if you've been doing it for a while, who is like talking to people still your biggest roadblock? What do I say? How do I say it? How do I overcome that objection? Yeah, so that's something that it's cool to know that everybody else finds uncomfortable. And once you get to the point where you're killing it and you're earning lots of money and you're doing, you still find it uncomfortable. So it's not a matter of, sure, we get better at it, but it's also just actually leaning into the discomfort of doing it and finding ways that work for us. So what I'm going to do is run through just like a bit of a potential flow of how we can do this in a way that's really authentic, in a way that feels good. So the first thing I want to talk about is, like, I've got in bold there the marketing aspect of network marketing, because a lot of people have a bit of an allergy to sales and marketing and that as a concept. So we need to get into, make peace with the idea that that's what we're doing. So Isagenix, they take care of all the business stuff. Our job is marketing. Are you putting me in story? Oh, cat's creeping me. So this concept of attraction-based marketing. So, like, gone are the days where you can just put up products or go to people and suggest people do things. It's things that work really, really well when we're understanding and utilizing this concept of attraction-based marketing. So the question is, like, who would love people coming up to them every day and saying, I love what you're about, how can I get involved? If people were just knocking on your door, like, would that be a good thing? Can I get some shuckers if that would be a good thing? Yeah, getting some. Because that like sounds like a ridiculous thing, but there are people who are working in the Isagenix businesses that they're in that position. I literally have people messaging them every day. How can I get started? How can I get started? So the first thing we need to think about before we think about talking to people is building our brand. So this concept is really, really important, because that's what's going to separate you from everyone else out there doing network marketing in some form, or everyone out there in Isagenix, because people will buy you before they buy your product. And your brand is how people can get exposure to you without actually having a conversation with you. So things to start thinking about as you're getting into this, or even if you've been in it for a while, really check in with this is who are you? What do you love doing? And what are your values? Because that's going to flow through your brand. And then obviously we've got social media and influence. So social media is just a really, really powerful way to give people an insight into what you're about and open the door for them to come to you. Because who would agree it's much better if people are coming to you than you reaching? It's more uncomfortable to reach out to somebody. So utilizing social media in a way that's first and foremost authentic. So this is really important. Like, this is why the question, what do you love, is number 2, because it's not what does Isagenix sell? It's not what packs are you trying to sign people up on? It's like, it's none of that, because that's irrelevant. Because if you love cats, sweet, post about cats. If you love knitting, post about knitting, because you're going to connect with people that also love knitting, and therefore you can build relationships with people that are authentic. Because if you just start posting all this random health stuff, or you've never done a post about money and then all of a sudden you're a financial expert, Like it's smelly and people can smell it a mile away. So making sure when you're building your brand, be authentic and also understand that like you can change that if you're wanting to say, if you're, you know, and you're wanting to live into somebody who talks about health or talks about mental health or talks about money and online business, that can happen, but it won't happen overnight. So it's just start to, if you're wanting to change the direction of your branding, that doesn't happen overnight. So before we talk about actually talking to people, because the conversation's already started before the conversation starts. Do you know what I mean? People have landed on our social, they've stalked our social, they might have, you know, looked at mutual friends and all this kind of stuff. So this is a really important starting place because the conversation's already started before we open our mouths. And that's the beauty of social media and why network marketing is so powerful now, because we can impact and connect with people on this level. So taking the time to do this properly is what separates you. And also, if you have other things in your life that you're doing, other purpose, other passion, it might be your job, it might be your passion project, your brand can link to that as well. Do you know what I mean? So you've got your brand, and then Isogenics is a tool that you can use, a really powerful tool. So it's depending on where you're at. Some people are like, look, I'm just straight up ISA, and that's epic. And other people are like, well, I'm me, and this is part of it, and this is another part of what I do, and this is another part of what I do. But either way, putting time and effort into building your brand in an authentic way will serve you and your Isogenics business for years to come. So that's what I wanted to start with. Does that all make sense before we get into sort of the nitty gritty stuff?
Good, yeah. Man. Hey, can I ask a quick question, Tal?
Sure.
Do you think, like, especially with the newbies, they could leverage like other inspiring stories? You know, because like you said, you don't want to come out being a financial expert, or you don't want to be a health expert. But if you write, you know, you share something authentically, and you actually were inspired by this person. I was like, you know, I'm inspired by Tully. Like, you know, 3 years ago he was a physio, you know, working his 9 to 5, and now he's living down yelling out with his beautiful missus, and he's running these really cool retreats. Like, do you think sharing those type of things and really celebrating people is a good way to create attraction without directly saying, hey, I'm an expert at this, but surrounding yourself with those stories and saying in a way of like, these are the type of people you're tuning into?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a really, and because that links to your brand straight away. And I was even chatting to Will about this week, like jumping on a live call, and we might jump on a live call and chat about masculinity and men's health. And that is, Will's brand is now somebody who chats to people, and then all of a sudden people that are following him will then get associated with me. So then when he shares other stuff that involves me, people have already had a feel for what I'm about as well. So you can actually bring people in, and it doesn't have to be about Isogenics or network marketing or health or money. Do you know what I mean? That's where it comes back to, just building your brand. And if it's a perfect way to start, it's just start interviewing people on Facebook Lives who have inspiring stories, or find a way to provide value. Because if you haven't provided any value, there's no exchange. Whereas if you've just provided value, people will want to give you money. People will want to come and buy what you've got. Whereas if you haven't done any of that, then, and you don't need to be the source of that value. That's where you can add stuff. You can share articles. You can do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely, man. Cool. So now getting into talking to people. So it doesn't matter what works. It only matters what duplicates. So this is really important, because if you, like, say if I started this business and I was just really good at selling and really good at talking to people, which I wasn't at all when I started this business, and really good at connecting with people. And so you could sign up people, you could get people started all day, every day, but you were doing it in a way that nobody else could emulate, you wouldn't build a business. You'd just have a new job of getting people started on cleansers. If you want to build a business that duplicates and create an income that will free you, it needs to duplicate. You need to be able to show people what you're doing. And therefore, using scripts and templates is really, really important. And SKO was a beautiful reminder of that, because that's what we spent most of the day working through, was a lot of these scripts and templates. So if initially the thought of using a script was a bit weird for me, because I was like, it didn't feel authentic, it wasn't my words and all that kind of stuff, it's just stories. So my first piece of advice is just get over that. And you can like, and it's as simple as it is. Like, it's because you can find a way to make it work, because scripts have just got elements in them that are powerful, and it's just the psychology and the language that we're using. And remember, it's not about us as well. It's like, oh, I don't want to sound like this, or I don't want to do this. And it's like, well, it's not about us. It's how can we actually get a message across in a way that's going to land for somebody else. So get over it, step number one. And step number two is like, take the time to learn it, because everything's uncomfortable when you first start using it. Learning to walk, we were probably pretty uncomfortable with it initially. Learning to ride a bike, uncomfortable. Whenever we're doing anything new, it's going to be uncomfortable. So it's just getting over it, doing the work, practicing it until it actually feels comfortable. And it gets to the point where you can start to speak and you don't even realize, but actually how you're speaking is actually really emulating a script that's templated, which is cool because that's duplicable, and that's something you can say here and pass on to the people that you want to help as well. Because who here wants to obviously earn an extra income for themselves, but help other people earn an extra income for themselves? Yeah, it's like, that's the whole game, right? And we can't do that unless we're leveraging the systems and the templates. So I'm going to share these scripts in the BFREE group. But initially getting started, whether it's, and this is when you can post on social media. So like I've already spoken about building your brand. And the thing is, even if you're just getting started now, you've got a brand. You've got people that know, like, and trust you. So sharing through social media, again, if that's uncomfortable for you, my recommendation is get over it. Because if you're not willing to use social media or some sort of, and if you're not using social media, then maybe paid marketing is an option. But if you're not willing to do those things, then you have to go out and talk to people and go to them rather than have them come to you. And it's a lot easier to get over the roadblock of using social media, if that's uncomfortable for you, than it is to go out and do that. So there's a template before you get started. So if you're setting somebody up, there's a template for a post that they can do before they start, so that they can start to generate interest before their boxes even arrive. There's a template for posting during your 30 days, and then there's a script for after you've completed your 30 days. So the purpose of these posts is to generate curiosity and to pique interest. Like, very rarely are you just going to do a post and then 15 people say, yes, sign me up, I want to do it with you. That may happen. If you have already a really good influence and really good following, sure, that can happen. But most of the time, it's not going to. That's not the point of it. The point is so people start to watch. And so then when you're 2 weeks in, when you're 30 days in, people have already been watching because you've been sharing. So then by the time you share your results, or start speaking to people about your results, you've already got that trust built up with people, and people have already been watching. So it's really letting go of the attachment to an outcome and following the process. And the other thing here, Instagram stories are gold, because that gives people an insight into the behind the scenes, because people want to creep on, like, people want to creep, like, people want to look at stories, people want to know what's going on behind the scenes with people. So Instagram stories are an epic way to do that, especially without flooding your brand, which is your posts, with specific little things. So Instagram stories is that perfect, like, middle ground where people can really get a feel for what you're about and little things you're up to, without actually throwing it all over your wall, if that doesn't actually align with your brand. I'm just going to jump on the chat thread here. Audience and attention equals currency. Exactly. Okay, sweet. So that's a little bit about, like, getting started. So write this down if you haven't listened to it, or if you haven't listened to it in a while. So throughout our journey of becoming part-time network marketers, part-time legends, there's learning and there's doing. One's a left foot activity, one's a right foot activity. If you only do left foot activities, what are you going to do? You're going to walk in a circle and you're not going to get very far. If you only do right foot activities, the same thing's going to happen. So success will come when you're learning and you're implementing. Learn, implement, learn, implement. If you're only doing, but you're not actually reviewing and learning new skills, you might have 50 million conversations, but if you're not actually getting better at the way you're having those conversations, you're going to get exhausted and burnt out pretty quick. And if you're sitting at home reading books and listening to podcasts, but you're not talking to any humans, then your business probably isn't gonna thrive. I don't think. You might learn a lot. And I'm going to put my hand up. Like, I was a chronic learner when I got started. Like, I just love learning, and I could talk all day, but just not to other people. And it's a bit of a comfort zone thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and it's, again, it's like lean in. And it was a good reminder again from Andrew Logan, because he's like, is this hard? Like, is reaching out to somebody that you haven't spoken to before hard? Like, yeah, it's a bit uncomfortable, but do you know what's also hard? Working a job you fucking hate for 30 years to support your passion rather than create it. Like, there are lots of hards, and we get to choose our hard. So it's like all of this stuff, yeah, it may be uncomfortable, but it's like we can lean into this. So the learning aspect, icebreakers, I think it's about $3 on Audible, Cal. About $3, and it's about an hour and 20 minutes. The feedback I've been getting from people who are just getting started listening to this audio is phenomenal. Okay, so before you even, and just imagine you guys, like, you just bought a McDonald's franchise or any sort of franchise. Like, you just invested 100K, and they say, before you get started, we've got 2 weeks solid of training, 50 hours a week. It's like, you're in there, you would go and do that training. So it's like, before we get started exploring this as a business, there is training and learning to be done, and this is part of it. So after icebreakers, it's GoPro by Eric Worre. Who's listened or read GoPro recently? Yeah, it's epic. It's like the Bible. And then another one that should be on the early listen list or early read list is the 4 Agreements, which is more from the personal development aspect of things. But because if you're enrolling people and they lack confidence or lack self-belief or haven't done much personal development, they might go and have 3 or 4 conversations, get told no, and then quit because they take it personally, because they're attaching the no to them. So yes, we need to learn network marketing skills, but we also need to develop ourselves. Like number 6 here, become a better, more influential you. We always need to be developing ourselves. So that's the learning side of things, to do with talking to people. The doing side of things is posting on social media and then writing down our sort of easy customer list and start reaching out to people using the templates. And again, whoever wasn't at SKO, I can share those in the groups. So does this help remove a little bit of overwhelm for people, especially getting started? It's like, this is where we start. We learn how to communicate better with people and how to connect with people. And then we utilize social media and we utilize some templates to reach out to people. So that's sort of pretty simple. Cool. So this is a bit of a, I guess, a visual for how things can flow. So step 1 is to pique interest or create curiosity. So the worst thing in the world is if somebody hasn't asked to take a look at what you're doing and you try to explain what you're doing, it's not going to be a very fun conversation. It's going to be really awkward and just a bit shit, really. So all we want to do is pique interest and create curiosity. So the best way to do that, through social media, and then also using text or direct messages, using the scripts and using the terminology that you learn by listening to icebreakers. There's ways of connecting with people where there's actually no pressure for them to take a look, but they know that if they want to, they can. And so that way, all you're doing is you're piquing curiosity. You're not telling them to take a look. You're not like, pique curiosity, because if that's your intention, that's quite a light intention. Do you know what I mean? It's not heavy. People aren't going to feel weird vibes off that. So that's step number 1. Step number 2, if they are interested, is to ask questions and to listen. So if you reach out to somebody and they're like, yeah, sweet, I'll take a look. It's spring. Want to shred up a bit, or I want more energy, or yeah, I'm looking for a second source of income, whatever it might be, the tendency is like, awesome, I'll send you some information. But really at that point, we have no idea what's going on for them. We have no idea what their goals actually are. We have no idea, especially if it's through social media, we might not even know them. So the first thing to do before we actually share what we're up to is ask questions and listen. And again, there's a script for this. So this is the Jackson Park cake recipe script. Is really good for digging deep with people and finding out a bit about them. as a person. And there's two things for this. A, you want to make sure you're actually offering a valid solution to a valid problem. Otherwise, you're just slinging shit against the wall. It's like, that's when it becomes sales. If you're just dishing out the same thing to everybody without actually getting to know their issue, then that's when it becomes not fun. The other thing is you actually want to determine if they're a right fit for you. Because if it's going to be hard work for you to help this person, then it's like, not everybody is a good fit. Okay, so that's point number 2. Ask questions and listen. If you find out about them and they're like, yeah, I want to look at some information, then you either link them up in a 3-way chat, so either on Facebook or Insta, and send them a tool. So the tool can be a video, the tool can be a recorded link, the tool can be the 3-way chat is actually a tool. It's really cold. We've got the fire cranking. And this is a really important step, because the tendency is to, and who's been there, and I still go there, like it's still a very conscious thing to have to link people up in a 3-way chat, especially because I'm at the point where I can probably answer most of their questions. So it's really important to do this, because it's otherwise you're just creating, if there's no third-party validation or third-party, you're relying on you having to learn everything so then you can be the messenger. And as long as you're the messenger, you don't have freedom, and you won't create freedom. You just create another job. And yeah, you'll enroll people, and you might enroll a lot of people, but will you actually create freedom and create depth and help people create an income as well? Potentially not. So this is where using a third party is really important. Like, who's had success with that? I know Rory's been linking up a lot of 3-way calls with me. Like, Linda, are you using a lot of 3-way chats and that sort of thing at the moment?
No, not at the moment.
Yeah. Have you found that when you were doing your derby and stuff and you were getting your people were enrolling people, were they using it with you?
Yes. My people use it with me. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. I personally have not been using anybody for 3-way calls. Yeah,
I've fallen into that trap too. So just I'm here if you need them. I love a good 3-way. So send them my way if you need any of that. But this is really important for new people getting started, and it's a trap we can fall into, is not using that. And it's a really, really, really important point. So when we're sending a tool, this is where, like, listening to Eric Borre and doing that learning aspect is really important. And all it is that if I sent you a video that explains more about the system, like, would you watch it? Or if I spoke to my mentor and organized, see if he had half an hour free for a chat, would you be open to having a chat with him? Would you? And whatever it might be, whatever that fit is going to be, because again, that's a really light conversation, and it's not oh, please take a look at this. It's like, if I do this, would you do this? So, and then link up in a 3-way chat with your sponsor, or it's link up with somebody that's got a similar story. So if I'm speaking to a woman that has no energy and she wants to lose some weight and she's just gone through menopause, it's like, is Rory the most appropriate person to chat to her? Maybe not. Rory's like this surfy bum in Bali, like shredding it up. No, he's not a surfy bum, he's a surfy entrepreneur. But do you know what I mean? Like, find somebody with a similar story. And this is where, like, linking somebody up with an expert, it's just somebody with a similar story. So if I had that person, I might link them up with Linda. Linda had an incredible weight loss and incredible energy story with the products, like game changing. If you guys haven't seen her before and after, like, check that out, because it was absolutely game changing. So I might link her up with Linda. So, and this is where collecting stories is really important, because when we're speaking to new people, all we're doing is collecting their stories. Like, what's going on for them? Like, what's going on in their life? Where are they at with their energy, with their health, with their finances, with their stress? Like, we're collecting stories, but then it's important to collect stories within the community as well, because that's who we're going to link people up with. And then we're just linking people up with similar stories and getting out of the way and just guiding the process. So 1, 2, 3. Point number 4 is the, like once, and this is what I'm finding has worked well in the past. And like I've got on about 5 3-way calls for Rory in the last couple of weeks. And all he does is he doesn't even tell me he's going to do it because I just give him permission to do it whenever, is he'll just put me in a 3-way chat, introduce me, introduce them, and then let me take it away. Because jumping on a phone call can be a little bit intimidating, especially if they don't know the person. They're like, what? I don't ever jump on phone calls. Like people find phone calls a bit weird these days. So, but anybody will jump in a 3-way chat thread. So start with that. And then it's the role of the expert or the sponsor to then take that to a 3-way call. Roz.
I was just going to say, man, like the biggest thing about the biggest like 180 or 360 that I've had with this is that point you said before is like, I could give them the knowledge. I could give them all the points, all the tools, everything. But the mastery behind influence and the ability to really help people move is third-party edification. They already trust you, but they need to trust someone else. They need to trust someone whose story is like theirs. And also it bypasses like all these emotional channels. Like, you know, people already have things that they think about you, you know what I mean? As soon as you separate yourself from that and you're no longer the messenger, they then make a self-realization and self-informed choice. And then everything from that space is on them. And then they know they've got support. They know you've gone out of your way. So even though it seems like such a small thing as like connecting someone in like a 3-way message, it is the most powerful like behavioral tool for change like ever. And like I do it beyond network marketing and ISA. I do it with pretty much everything I do now is I edify someone else and then they edify me and vice versa. So if you really get this point, it's the most powerful thing. And it took me 5 years to realize it.
Yeah, epic. Thanks, dude. Cool. And then so after that 3-way conversation, then the person's either going to be ready to sign up or they're not. They're either going to want to see more information or the timing won't be right or it won't be for them or whatever. And again, we have no attachment to that. It's not our job to make people be ready for this. It's our job to find the people that are. And timing is everything. Do you know what I mean? So if they're ready to get started, awesome. Enroll them and then you start that system, which is a completely separate system. If not, like if you can't get them on a call, then sort of just send through the relevant info. If the person's ready, enroll and start them on that and get them. If no, might not be the right time. So what you can do then is you can invite them to the Be Well page. So this is so they can take a look in their own time. And then you put them on their follow-up list. Because what you're doing then is you're giving them exposure to the results, to the community, to all of that stuff. And they're getting to see and to feel that. So they can just watch as they're going and always ask permission to follow up. Write this down. Always ask permission to follow up. Because things only get awkward in this business is when we haven't asked permission to follow up and then we will really want to follow up with someone. So if I'm chatting to somebody, in fact, this happened. I did a post about 3 weeks ago. A girl reached out from over in Geelong. I found out her goals. I sent her through some info. She's like, yeah, awesome. I'm just trying to get on track with healthy eating and exercise right now. I'm like, wicked. How's that going? She's like, I'm just started, so I want to see how it goes. I'm like, cool. Like, is it okay if I check in with you in 3 weeks' time to see how you're doing? And she's like, yeah, that'd be amazing. And so then I go to my calendar and I'm like, follow up with BFREE in 3 weeks' time. But I've asked permission, so she's then expecting it. Whereas if you never ask permission and then you're just constantly asking people, and there's ways of following up in a really authentic way where you're not just asking about ISA. But if you have permission to do it, it shows, like, it's your responsibility to then do it, and it shows that you care. It's like you didn't just want to try and sign someone up this 1 week because you were starting to cleanse. It's like you genuinely care about their health and well-being enough to follow up with them. So always ask permission. And so some learning around this is the Jackson Park cake recipe script. Again, I'll share all of these in BFREE. Get better at connecting and asking questions, because it's never, and price objection is the most common one. And this is why the third party is so important, because your sponsor will be much better at handling that objection than you will be initially until you build confidence. But it's never a price objection. People have got the money. Like if you're speaking to this person, this potential customer, and it's like, oh wow, that's expensive. Like I don't have the money. It's like, well, if you said to that same person, if you bring me $600 tomorrow, I'll give you a Ferrari. They'll rock up on your door with $600. Like they've got access to the money. They can find the money. It's not a money issue. It's just a value. It's just there hasn't been enough value created around what this investment is going to provide for them. So therefore, you haven't actually gotten clear enough with their pain points and where they're actually at, or you haven't casted a vision for where they could go. So that's just where practicing that skill of talking to people and getting to know people and getting to know their goals is really important. And it's a skill. Like the first few times you do it, you're probably going to be shit at it. You're going to have awkward conversations. If I had $1 for every awkward conversation I had when I was starting this, like I'd be a rich man. So it's understanding that it's a learning process. But what I love about all of this is, like Rory said, it's applicable to anything else you do in life. Like all of these skills that you're learning, no matter what you want to do in life, it's going to make you better at it because you're just getting better at relating to people. I'm just going to check in with the chat thread. Love to suck. Yeah, exactly. Cake recipe, Callum Barton's thrown that in there. Dun, dun, dun. Go back to the left. Yeah, awesome. So, moving on. Some points to consider. Feel free to write these down, guys. So, the first one is you're actually looking for their objections or concerns because everybody has them. So, if they're not coming forth with them, then they're hiding them from you. So you almost want to go hunting for what their objections are, what their concerns are, so that you can address them, so that you can support them through that. And even asking like, what are your biggest concerns at this point? And they're like, well, I'm just concerned I'm not going to be able to afford it on an ongoing basis, or I'm just concerned about this, and actually asking those questions. And again, to have the posture around asking those questions is something that you might need to learn and develop. So this is where that third party is really important. The other thing I've already touched on this, it's never a price objection. Non-attachment. This is a big one. And because if you have attachment to the outcome, then that's felt. Do you know what I mean? We're getting more and more, our bullshit detectors are getting more and more sensitive. So people can feel if we're really invested in their outcome and it doesn't feel nice. So we might really want it for somebody, especially like friends or family that we care about, and they're struggling with their health or they're fine, and we know this is like we're probably going to be really invested in that. But practicing non-attachment is really important because if we care more than they do about the outcome, it can be felt, and it's not a nice feeling. So really, like, definitely pour love on people, but approach each connection with non-attachment. Because at the end of the day, like, this is a numbers game as well. Like, only around 10% of people are actually open and ready for a health change at any one time. So if you chat to 10 people, at that point in time, probably only 1 or 2 will sign up, which is cool to know because then it's not personal. It's not you. Like, they're just the numbers. So if you want to enroll 2 people and you want to get started with 2 people, you're probably going to have 20 conversations. And then the last thing is get really good at connecting in 3-way chat threads. So again, the learning Jackson Park cake recipe, that's come up a few times. Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up there. We've just gone on 40 minutes, but I'm just going to open it up just for the last 5 minutes if there's any questions around any of that stuff. So if, just take yourself off mute. If not, or just throw it up in the chat thread. Otherwise, we'll leave it there. Was that handy? Was that make things a bit simpler? Yeah, cool. Because it can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's like, stick to those basics. Feel more epic, cool. Yeah, sweet, guys. So, and the cool thing is, and this was a big reminder for me at SKO, because I'd gotten away from it, but go back to those scripts, because that's a way you can have people start to share before they go and, do you know what I mean? It can take a while to learn all the skills, yeah? So but also it's the icebreakers, the GoPro, because who, before listening to icebreakers and GoPro, was really unsure about how to even talk to anybody. And then after listening to it, they were like, oh, yeah, I could go and have a conversation. Show hands? Yeah. Yeah, sweet. So if you haven't done those, Jamie, I'll send you the links to those because they're, and go back and read this and make sure your people are listening to them too. So whatever system we're using, that's why I included it in the system, because whatever system we're using, that needs to be a part of it early on. I'm just going to check the chat thread, see if there's any questions. And then we'll wrap it up. Basics, all about the basics, yeah. We're going to make this into a PDF, yeah. So we're going to have a PDF and it'll just have hyperlinks and it'll be on a Google Drive so that you can just get access to this. And then when your people start, then they can get access to this. What's the learning part and what's the doing part? Okay, learn, listen to this, do, post on social media and write my list of 20. And we're just going to have this system to get started and get some flow. So on that note, what else? What events are coming up? We've got David Wood in November. Rose, you want to share something?
Yeah, just key events and promotions, man. So David Wood's probably the biggest one. I know for you and me, he's probably the one guy that I still reference.
I'm flying to Brisbane. Who's going to be in Brisbane? November, DW.
Yeah, it's probably the most high value event I've done, and I've done events over $10,000, and I use this dude's methodology for every retreat I facilitate now. It's I don't even know if we can really talk about how valuable it is. People just got to rock up and do it for themselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And promotion, Fiji promotion, man. So if anyone wants a free trip to Fiji, as we know, ISA puts 50% of their profits back into their people. So they find funky ways to reward people for having a bigger impact. So we've worked it out that if you can, help 10 people, help 2 people each, so 30 people, or you help 30 people by yourself, you pretty much qualify. So, that's by October 28th. So if you can influence 30 people in that time, that's either yourself or through duplication, then you're a big chance to get a free trip Fiji. So
yeah,
that's
Callum
it.
and me are going. So if anybody else wants to come, then it'd be great to hang out.
We just got to work together, man. Like this, I was reflecting on this, Tull, and the times where we had the biggest impact and influence was when we up a shit ton of 3-way calls and 3-way messages. So Will, Linda, if we just get back to that space and keep cross-pollinating and let things evolve when it's at, maybe we all work towards, a 30-day reset starting on the 1st of October to give people a genuine start date. Then we can all feed into the same flow and momentum.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, legends. Well, thanks for jumping on. Good to see all your faces. And
Thanks,
same.
guys.
See ya.
Thanks,
same time next week, guys. So get your team on. We're going to be refreshing these basic 6 skills and just going over mastering the mundane, nailing the simple things. So make sure when you've got people on that are wanting to share the products and stuff, get them on this. And if they can't get them live, get them the recording because it's just leveraging your time and leveraging the skills. All right. On that note, I'm going to go hydrate.
Thanks, man.
Good. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys.
See you through.
Peace.
No, get out of it.